Hey, you guys, welcome back to Rune Walking in Modern Times. I'm Ken, the Rune Walker. We've had a very good series in this series 7 of Rune Walking in Modern Times. I've enjoyed interviewing and talking to quite a few colleagues and friends who are themselves rune walking in some form or another in modern times. We began the series by talking to Jared of Rowan Wolf Runecraft, then had some very good conversations with Ingrid Kincaid, Terry of Thorson's Workshop, and Sophia Fate Changer. We've also heard from the runes, of course, a few months in a row, I think, of guidance for the month from the runes through my connection. This will be the last episode in Series 7 of Rune Walking in Modern Times. And let me tell you why. Mostly, this is because I produce a couple of other podcasts, and I've had to rearrange publishing dates for those. So it'll be a little easier, and I mean, honestly, it'll provide you with listening pleasure all year long. Psychic Medium, the podcast, is a podcast I do with my friend Kelly, who is the spiritual messenger of Source and Spirit. Kelly and I talk all things Psychic Medium, and that is currently being published, but will end the end of May. Moving forward into next year, that podcast will be published in January, February, and March. Then a new podcast is coming out, Blue Antler, Whispered Secrets and Hidden Wisdom. It's a Discover Your Path podcast, which means we will be talking to people from all walks of life, I hope, all spiritualities, all people who have had experiences touching, have felt experiences, embodied visceral experiences touching the unknown, and how that has changed their lives, how it has influenced how they see the world. So I'm very much looking forward to that podcast. That podcast will then be published in May, June, and July. Rune Walking in Modern Times will be published in September, October, and November. So this year you will get another round of Rune Walking in Modern Times. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate your support and your attention. Now, a couple things to wrap up this season. I want to go back to the episode a couple weeks ago of, I think the picture was bleach. So the idea that a lot of our modern spirituality and modern ideas of spirituality, even paganism, are very sanitized. Now, I recorded that podcast, and the minute I clicked upload, I realized that I was sanitized in that episode. And which is funny, because then a couple of days later, a friend of mine who will actually be on the Blue Antler podcast as a guest said to me, I think that you were it was funny that you labeled that podcast sanitized and talk about sanitizing spirituality and paganism, because I felt like you were sanitizing it. And I agreed quickly, because I had the same feeling. So, too often, and probably throughout my entire life, I have been very aware, and I've had to become very aware of how I speak, the words I use. I never intend or want to offend people. And I believe that is something most of us encounter at one point or another, because if we offend too many people, especially who are right around us, that affects our community, which affects our stability and feeling part of. So, too much light will burn you. Period. People of the earth, pagans, believed in fertility rites. That is not I'm doing my best not to sanitize. That is not just having a picture of a bird and a bee on an altar. That at some point in time probably involved fucking on an altar, fucking in the forest. That involved drinking mead or other alcohol that would induce an altered state, that entailed and embodied such a visceral idea of lust and explosion and creation and raw nature. And all of those fucking things that I've just talked about are completely sanitized in our culture, and to our detriment. How do you feel about your sexuality? How do you feel about your penis? How do you feel about your vagina? How do you feel about your breasts? How do you feel about your mouth? How do you feel about all of the things that are your body, that are your physical manifestation and representation of your genetic coding, which came from your ancestors, which comes from the earth? So all of the things that we deny in ourselves, our sexuality, our lust, our cravings, all of those things that we deny that are part of us, they're not meant to be overcome. We say that we have to overcome them because we can't control them. That's a weak excuse. The reason we probably can't control them is because we've pushed them back so long and so hard that all of that pressure is built up and is now going to come spilling over like a fucking dam breaking. So, I realize I'm saying fuck a lot. And it's probably necessary because I've held it in for so fucking long. Trying to be nice and trying to be being nice. That's a whole other thing, right? Trying to not offend. And I would say you don't do what I just did. Don't hold it in. Now, that doesn't mean you go hog wild. That doesn't mean that you throw caution to the wind and do whatever the fuck you want, thinking that there will not be results in your actions. We're out of alignment. So, there's much work for us all in letting the pressure out from the dam so that we don't explode and wash away everybody near us. There's much work to be done in understanding where you are, what you're feeling, who is around you, what resources around you, what things are potentially dangerous to you. Or people. And then aligning ourselves with the situation or environment that we're in to then be able to make choices moving forward. Most of the time we try and make the world around us bend to our will. We try and make the world align to us instead of us aligning to what's happening. So sanitized. Not everyone is equal. Everyone should have equality. But not everyone has the genetic expression to be a spirit worker, to be psychic, to be a shaman, to be a doctor, to be an astrophysicist. We've been taught that if you apply yourself enough, then you can, do this. I would say yes. And I would say, what is it that's happening within you? What is it about your genetic expression that lends itself to certain things? When I was a kid, my dad would be asked all the time, "Oh my God, you've got that kid in football, right? He's a big kid. He needs to be playing football." And my dad would say, "No, he's not." "Well, why don't you have that big kid in football? He's a big kid. He should be playing football." And my dad would say, "Because he doesn't want to." Could I have been great at football? No. My size was appropriate, and my coordination was not. So it took until I was well into my 20s before I found my coordination. So, would that have worked well? Could I have maybe found my coordination earlier? I don't know. And there are many more things to think about than what maybe our society thinks about as these really exciting, cool, top-performing jobs, careers, places within our community. Unfortunately, we don't, at the moment, give equal weight to the janitor, the garbage man, the doctor, the lawyer, the clergyman, the cook. Everyone has a place. And because we've separated those into a hierarchy of good to bad, or better, and because they have a monetary value placed upon them, and money is one of the new gods, the gods of the new world. Because we tend to worship at that altar, whether or not we know it or like it. We've created separation instead of here's everything that needs to happen in our culture and in our community to make it work. Everybody has a job, and every job is important. There are a lot of things that are quite fucked up at the moment. So, do I feel like I've gotten my non-sanitized points across that I felt during this season? Yep. For some reason, we need to say this. Folks, the one thing that has been seriously, the one thread in our tapestry that has really been super prevalent, even since December, is represented by Ewaz. Stop waiting to be told what to do because you're afraid you're going to do the wrong thing. Stop waiting to do something because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Stop waiting. I hear this a lot in spirituality, and I feel like it's very appropriate. Henry's getting very worked up, by the way, the dog. I feel it's very appropriate in our physical world. So, like, put spirituality off to the side. If you are having to feed yourself by planting a garden and taking care of that, if you're waiting for someone to tell you when to plant, what if no one ever tells you to plant? If you might have to talk to people and say, hey, I'm new to the area. When do we normally plant? That's fine. And then you take that information and you apply it. I know here, we don't plant until after Mother's Day, for sure, outside. Even later sometimes. So, if I were to wait, nothing happens. So, that philosophy, that practice is everything happens to you. That is not the place to interact with our world, with nature, with, Henry agrees, with our community, with our own life, with our gods, with the land spirits, with any of that. Waiting and having the mentality that things happen to you is not, it doesn't work. In the natural world. We support that. So, you are responsible for yourself. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about your life? What are you going to do about the things that you don't like? Are you just going to, wait for someone to come along and complete you like a Disney, fairy tale? Are you going to wait for someone to come along and feed you? Are you going to wait for someone to come along and get you off? Are you going to wait for someone to come along and clothe you, to build you a home? Are you going to wait for someone to come along and befriend you instead of you befriending someone else? Okay. So, I don't even feel like any of that was harsh. I'm, like I said before, in the past I've been concerned about hurting people's feelings or having people not accept me. So I'm going to change that. And that happened starting right now. So I appreciate you listening to the unsanitized part of the show. A couple of other things that I wanted to bring up to share with you prior to wrapping up Series 7. One, like I said before, we have Psychic Medium the podcast, Blue Antler podcast, and Rune Walking in Modern Times podcast. That means 9 months out of the year, if you're interested, you can hop on the wagon and join me for this ride. If you're interested in other things, runewalker.com is the website where you can find information about booking psychic rune intuitive readings, where you can find blog posts, where you can find the opportunity to purchase some of the rune wear that I'm creating or the other t-shirts that I'm creating. That's there. You can find me at the Conjuring Tree in not Salt Lake City. I always forget whether it's West Jordan. I think it's West Jordan. The Conjuring Tree, doing readings probably twice a month there in person, so you can find me there. I'm also going to be helping with some of their Craft Your Path classes, which are free classes. So theconjuringtree.com, I believe, is what it is. So you can go there to look that store up, which is a great store, and you can come see me there. Then, is that it? I think it might be. But what I wanted to do was to pull some runes and have those runes help give us some guidance moving forward between now and when you and I see each other again for Rune Walking in Modern Times, which will be 4-ish months from now. So, for the summer, here's the thread and the guidance from the runes. Because we're pulling, if you've been watching long enough or listening, you know that if I pull a thread, I have Erd, Verdondian Skuld, that which is becoming, and that which must be. So looking at the Nornir in the Northern traditions as the guide for what we're looking at. So we're looking for the thread and the pattern. Okay, it keeps wanting me. This happened last time. There are 4. So that's a giant fuck you probably from them to me. So this is what we're looking at. Oh, that's why. Okay, so the first rune that we pulled was Wunyo. Wunyo is a rune of joy, ecstasy, madness, a rune of I see it as alignment that allows us to feel ecstatic connection. So we are aligned as an individual to be able to have our antenna that receives information from the unseen. The next rune was Manaz. Manaz is a rune of community, is a rune of social contracts. It is a rune that helps us to remind us that there isn't someone who completes us. We are complete. Actually, Manaz is made up of 2 Wunyo runes. So, it reminds us that if we are whole and aligned in and of ourselves, and there are 2 people coming together, you form a 3rd thing, you don't form a completion of the one thing. The next rune that came up was Shan. Shan is a rune of stone. It is a rune that signifies foundations, keystones, cornerstones, and movement of time in a slower version. The 4th one was Algiz. Algiz is a rune of protection, of defense. It can be a rune that asks us, where are we so protected that we've now become imprisoned? So, if we're looking at some guidance from the runes for the summer, find alignment in yourself. Align those parts of you, the really beautiful meadow in the mountains that is completely lit up at noon, and those deepest, darkest shadows within the forest that hold amazing wisdom, as much wisdom as is held in the very light meadow. The balance of highlight and shadow is what create 3-dimensional, beautiful, moving images. And they also are part of what make us complete and beautiful images. This is foundational to our interactions with other people, to finding other people who are aligned as well. When we are aligned with ourselves, within ourselves, when we encounter someone who maybe interrupts that alignment, we can understand how to interact with them. And it doesn't mean you have to cut them out. It just means that pulled me out of alignment. I'm going to get myself realigned, and I'm going to find those people who, and you can still have community with those folks who bring you a little bit out of alignment, but your true commitments and your true weaving of threads together will come from and will be reinforced by the feeling of you being aligned with this other person who's in alignment, and that works. So deeper community bonds, deeper social contracts, deeper weaving, tighter weaving of threads for you within the community. Now, why is this important? I believe it is important because finding this alignment and finding the people that align with you allow for you to move out of the prison you have made to protect yourself, so that you feel free. You can be yourself. You'll find freedom within a tighter weave of the tapestry than you will from, you'll find freedom and safety in that it is different than just being protected by walls. So, thank you for, again, supporting Rune Walking in Modern Times, for supporting your own walk in modern times. And I hope you have a great summer. Don't forget that for the next month, you have Psychic Medium, the podcast, and starting in May, the Blue Antler podcast, Whispered Secrets and Hidden Wisdom, a Discover Your Path podcast. May your weird be filled with health, wealth, strength, and virility.